We got Neil Magny back here on the program. He's got a big fight coming up against Daniel Rodriguez, UFC Fight Night, October 15th. It's right around the corner. Neil, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Doing great. You just came off an airplane. You're heading to the gym right now. Tell me what brought you to travel and you heading back now.
Yeah, I'm literally just in the airport now. I was in South Carolina for the day. I was with the Independence Fund and the Save Our Allies organization. We kind of did like a fundraiser to help bring awareness to suicide prevention for veterans. So like part of the fundraiser and the seminar was just kind of like bring different veterans in from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life. Just trying to introduce them to martial arts and kind of like show them a different like. There's something else to do, so to speak. Like being a veteran myself, like we have a lot of different resources, but sometimes you don't feel like we have access to them. Like the VFW, for example. I go to VFW, there's a bunch of 60-plus-year-old men talking about Vietnam days and Desert Storm and all that kind of stuff, and I don't really feel like I fit in with those guys ever. So to be able to like share my love for martial arts and veterans, to give them like an outlet to be able to express themselves or find someone to talk to, whatever else it may be. I had a pretty cool opportunity to do that yesterday.
Good for you, man. That's awesome, using your platform and obviously your experience to help out others. I imagine it went well. What was the response like?
Yeah, it was great. Like we had a very good turnout. I mean, with only about a couple weeks' notice, we had a pretty huge turnout. I feel like we made a connection with a lot of guys there. So it was definitely a beneficial event for sure.
Let's talk about your fight. I talked about it off the top. Daniel Rodriguez. We found out like a week ago about this. When did you find out?
About the same time you did.
Okay.
This fight literally hit me when it hit the media. I literally woke up to Thursday morning with a bunch of MMA media outlets informing me that I was fighting Daniel Rodriguez. I'm like, this is interesting. I never got this fight offer. So I immediately contacted UFC and said, please tell me this is true. Please tell me this is my opponent, who's going to replace my original opponent, and this fight is actually happening. And they said, yeah, it's up to you. If you want this fight, it's yours. I will make it happen. So I immediately accepted that fight, and here we are.
Who's your original opponent?
I was supposed to fight Michelle Pierre initially.
Okay.
And then he had some issues going on where I believe it's his wife or his lady or someone suspecting the baby.
Oh, okay. Personal issues. Gotcha. I didn't even know that you were booked for a fight. So when was that fight booked then? Because I know there was rumors, but I never knew anything was official.
Yeah, so that one was in the quote-unquote works for a few weeks prior.
Okay.
I think I had about 7-8 weeks notice for that one. And then that same week that I got informed that he wasn't going to make the fight is when the Dan Rodriguez talk started happening.
Interesting. Okay, so this was so you obviously knew you were going to fight at least a while out, so you got a pretty good camp, I'm assuming, because you knew you were going to fight on this date, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the back of my mind, I was shooting for the October 15th date. But at the same time, I was offered the September 10th date too. So it was a lot of confusion, a lot of like, hey, be ready just in case going on, just to kind of like make things happen and get things done. So I was pretty flexible. I was ready to fight September 10th. I was ready to fight October 15th. I was ready to fight November 5th. They needed me to. So I'm pretty fortunate to have gotten a date for October 15th, just because things lined up personally where I'm able to like go out there fully focused, get the job done, and then move on to what's next.
It's great. It's never fun to talk about a loss, but we got to mention that fight with Shavkat Rakmonov. What did you take away the most from that performance that you're bringing into this fight?
The biggest thing for me leaving that fight was like I immediately came back home to Colorado. It was like I have to clear my plate. Like that was my biggest focus after that fight. Not to take anything away from Shavkat, like he did a great job. He's a great athlete. He's undefeated for a reason. But when I look at my performance personally, it was more so like the time and effort that I poured into that fight. I'm fighting these young guys who are literally leaving their families and coming to the U.S. to train in order to like pursue their goals and make this thing a reality for them. And here I am doing 20 different things at once and thinking I can do them all well. And that's just not the case. There's no way I can do 1,000 things great. Something's going to suffer for it. So going into that Shavkat fight, I just had a lot of things on my plate. I was doing two construction projects where I had two properties that I had purchased and was remodeling. My son was born 6 weeks premature. There was all this stuff going on that I was just like, in my mind thinking I was doing a good job of balancing, but at the end of the day, I was doing everything okay and nothing great. So after that Shavkat fight, when it really hit me, I was like, damn, that sucks. That wasn't the outcome I wanted. That wasn't the outcome I trained for. But in reality of it is like, I kind of got what I put into it. Like, you know what I mean? So after that fight, I was literally like determined to get back home and clear my plate, finish all these extra projects, finish all these other things going on and make training the main focus, where it's literally family the priority, training is the main focus, and everything else comes next. Where going into the Shavkat fight, that just wasn't the case for me.
Interesting. Okay, how long have you owned properties, by the way? I know you have some background in that as well, but how long have you been doing that? I had no idea you were doing this on the side.
Yes, I've been doing this for 7 years now.
Oh, cool.
And for the most part, it's been pretty cool, and it just never gotten away of anything. But based off of how last year played out for me, we had 8 months in between fights. I had assumed that this year would go similar, where it's like, okay, cool. I fought in March. I had expected to be able to fight maybe mid to late summer or something like that, and the opportunity came for me to fight in June. And at the time, I was like, you know what? I kind of had something on the table outside of fighting, but I can do it. I can balance it. I can take on all these other things. And before I knew it, I had like 1,000 things going on. I'm just like, oh, I still got this. I can do it. It's no big deal. I got all this under control. And the reality of it is there's just no way I can do everything great. And something's gonna give one way or another. And I'd rather my family and career not be the things that suffer when it comes to how I'm prioritizing my time.
No, very well said. So Rodriguez fought just a few weeks ago against an opponent you have faced in the past, in Li Jingliang. Did you watch that fight by chance?
Yeah, I definitely caught that fight. I mean, I was like literally sitting at the edge of my seat watching that fight because for selfish reasons, it kind of created what's next for me. If Lee were to win the fight, I'd be like, oh, well, I don't see UFC booking Lee and I for a rematch anytime soon. Mm-hmm. And if Dan Rodriguez wins the fight, I'm like, oh, cool, a new ranked opponent in welterweight who I get to potentially fight. So for selfish reasons, I was definitely watching that fight very closely, and even selfishly rooting for Rodriguez just so I can get an opponent.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. And kind of on that note, do you think he won the fight? Some people felt like Lee should have got the nod on the scorecards.
If I'm being 100% open and honest, no, I did not feel like he won that fight at all. I definitely thought Lee had won the first 2 rounds of that fight. But if I'm being selfish, I'm glad that it played out the way it did. Solely being selfish. I mean, it sucks to see Lee get destroyed into the stick the way he did, but as we can't change that decision, we can't change the outcome of that fight. I'm very fortunate that it actually produced an opponent for me. So for selfish reasons, I'm like, cool, I'll take that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what do you make of him taking this fight so close to the last one? I know he didn't take a ton of damage, and I know it was also a catchweight fight, so he wasn't having to make 170. But what do you make of him taking this on short notice? Do you think it'll help or hurt him?
I definitely appreciate him taking the fight. There's more props to him for doing so. I don't necessarily think him fighting so close is going to affect one way or another. I mean, that fight wasn't necessarily a war where it's just like out there, getting like these hard blows to the head or anything like that. In addition to that, they didn't have to cut all the way down to 170 either. So I don't think that there was much recovery needed after that fight, in my opinion. But I don't know what the guy went through personally. But in my opinion, I'm just assuming that it wasn't too crazy of a recovery after that fight, where you get to take a couple of days down and you jump back into the fight. With that being said, also like the fight playing out the way that it did, where a lot of people in the media, Dana White himself, saying that like, oh yeah, he didn't win that fight. He didn't win that fight. I feel like that would be motivating for Dan Rodriguez himself to go out there. It's like, oh, okay, if they win that fight, watch this and go out there and shock you guys in the next one. So I can understand that kind of motivation going into a fight. So I'm just excited for it.
Training camp, anything different for this one, or usual cast of characters? Who have you mainly been working with ahead of the matchup?
Yeah, so for this fight, I kind of wish I had more time to go out and prepare and get different looks or whatever. But I did spend the last week in Philadelphia training with the Daniel Gracie crew,
cool.
with the guys like Sean Brady, Jeremiah Wells, and those guys in Philadelphia. And it was pretty cool. I mean, the cool thing about going out there for me is like it's like literal sense where it's like iron sharpens iron. Like I have a great group of guys around me to push me day in and day out, but some of these guys have been training with for so many years that like the things that I'm learning, they're learning too. The things that I'm practicing, they're practicing too. So I go and apply different things. It's like, hey, I was at that class, dumbass. I know exactly what you're about to do right now. And I'm like, oh yeah, you were, weren't you? So be able to put myself out there when I'm outside of my comfort zone, I'm trying new things with different bodies who didn't necessarily see what I've been training or what I've been working on. I feel like it's super beneficial. It kind of gives you like some data to come back and work on in training camp before you get to the fight, rather than like stay in your comfort zone, stay with the same group of guys you're training with, and get this confidence. Like, yeah, I'm good to go. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And then have a lot of things, issues present themselves on fight night, and you're trying to figure out then. So being able to go out there and train with those guys in Philadelphia, for me, it's all about gathering data and seeing like, all right, cool. Where are some points that I can like work on and improve on before the fight actually gets there.
How's Brady looking ahead of his fight against Bilal Muhammad? Big opportunity for him to really jump up the rankings.
Oh man, I'm super excited for that fight. He's looking great ahead of that fight. I mean, it was kind of crazy. Even last week, I was filming for the UFC, and UFC is like the camera crew that was there. It was hard not to say. Like as soon as I mentioned I was in Philadelphia training for Brady, like the attention automatically shifted from like my fight. So I was talking about his fight and his preparation for that fight. So like even the producer, like, oh wait, let's get back to your fight here. Like we're going to use this data for Brady and for promoting his fight and all that stuff. But let's get back to your fight here. And to be honest, like I'm very excited for it. I feel like it's a huge opportunity for him, and he's gonna definitely go out there and capitalize on it.
You mentioned the traveling. How's the weight cut going ahead of the matchup? It's obviously going to be in a couple weeks, but everything under control there?
Yeah, weight cuts are great for me. I mean, that's literally the easiest part of my job at this point. I mean, it's the most senseless part of my job, but the easiest part of my job nonetheless.
Okay, fair enough. And how do you see this fight playing out on October 15th?
Man, I'm so excited for this fight. Like I said, I feel like Dan Rodriguez is going to come out guns blazing. Like, feel like he has something to prove after that last performance. And I'm in the same boat as him. Like, I know I'm 10 times better of the fighter, and I showed in that fight against Shavkat. So I'm looking to go out there and make a statement as well. So I feel like having both fighters come out there with that kind of motivation on their back is guaranteed fireworks. So I'm excited to go out there and put on a great show for the fans and just kind of prove to everyone why I'm still one of the best guys in the division.
You have a couple more fights in your contract, right? I was trying to remember from the last time we spoke.
I believe so. Yeah, that's probably not the best way to answer that. But
yeah. Well, I just mean like this isn't a fight where like you have to win. Like I know every fight's important, but you know what I mean. When you have that, when you're getting to the end of the contract, obviously you need to perform well if you want to renegotiate for a pay bump, right? That's why I asked. So.
Yeah, for me, I never put that kind of pressure on myself where it's like, oh, I have to do this in order to do that. I just go out there and do my best, and it always takes care of itself at the end of the day. I just know that, like, I have to go out there and fight my heart out, like, literally win, lose, or draw. And I just know I got to leave it on the line and kind of make it, like, oh, damn, you want to see Neil come back here and fight again? That dude has a lot more miles in him, and I want to see him so-and-so. So, like, for me, that's always been a motivating factor in these fights, whether I was on my last fight or my first fight in my contract. It's always been back in mind, like, all right, go out there and get it done and take care of what's next after that.
And last question before we get out of here. I know it's a few weeks removed now, but what did you make of Khamzat Chimaev missing weight and them having to do that shuffle at UFC 279?
Man, so one thing that I hoped it would have done was like kind of like alert the UFC, like, man, maybe we should do something different about weight cuts. Like every single fight, I get the fight week and they're taking our weight. It's all on the list where it's like, oh, your opponent weighs 182, you weigh 183. Your opponent's 181, you're 180. We all get there and we're similar to weight, but then we both agree like, oh, wait, you're 182, so am I. Let's both cut down to 170 on Friday. Let's turn around and fight each other at 185, 186 on a Saturday. It's been the dumbest thing for me to figure out the last couple fights or whatever. I'm just like, why are we still doing this? It seems so primitive. And like some of the old school guys, like, yeah, it's part of the sport. You got to cut weight and show that grit. I'm like, yeah, it's just stupid. Like, we don't do what we did back in the day. There's a reason why people aren't putting football in leather helmets anymore. Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, things have to evolve. And the fact that, like, as far as we're coming as a sport, a weight cut is still a big issue in there. I just thought that, like, would actually hope that the whole Khamzat situation would actually, like, cause UFC and other organizations look into like how they're doing weight cuts and finding ways to kind of get rid of it. Like, I know there's some guys who kind of want to cheat the system and gain an advantage and try to find ways to cut weight and like gain an advantage or whatever. But at this point, it's just super silly that we're both weighing about the same weight and we're going to just dehydrate our bodies 10, 15 pounds only to rehydrate and compete right back where we started the week at. Like, I just think it's the silliest thing at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I also wonder, like, do you think when USADA checks you, if they cannot maybe check the weight, and if you're really above like the limit, like maybe they say, hey, look, maybe you should have to move up or something. What do you think of that? Because some people have suggested that.
Yeah, so the hard part with that is like they test you, they test your hydration the day of your fight. So that's not your actual weight. So you just cut weight the night before and you're about to fight the next day. So one of the things that's on every athlete's mind, like, oh, I have to be super hydrated. So you're walking around with over a gallon of fluids in you. That's like an extra 8 pounds from your actual weight. Like, I can roll out of bed 180
2 pounds, but by the time I hydrate and drink and eat breakfast and all that other stuff here for the fight, just from the amount of volume that I'm drinking to stay hydrated that day, I'm gonna weigh 8 pounds heavier than what I woke up at. So by the time we get to the arena, and like, oh yeah, let's check your weight real fast. It's not an accurate depiction of what you actually weigh. It's not like they're taking your weight the first thing in the morning when you wake up and that kind of thing. They're checking your weight middle of the day or end of the day when you're getting ready to go to the venue. And I just feel like that's not an accurate reading of the weight. Like there's just so many different like because the other thing you're gonna have athletes that are gonna start like, oh wait, I can't hydrate all the way because they're going to check my weight again tomorrow. And then that's going to create a dilemma where now you have guys who are going to the fight dehydrated or malnourished because they're worried about getting weighed in again, having the commission or whoever else determine how low they can go in their weight. So most of the guys who fight relatively close to their weight class as far as like being within that 10% of their only lose about 10% of their body weight or whatever. Most guys who follow that game plan tend to be okay, but there are some guys that fall through the cracks and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be 20 pounds over my opponent and I'm gonna come in there and be real big guy in the fight. It's like, yeah, but you're ruining it for everybody else. Like that
Yeah.
mindset and that advantage you think you're gaining is why everyone else is like having to go through what they go through, like tear their do extra wear and tear in their body for absolutely nothing. There's no advantage gained in that at all.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And just last question: do you think Chimaev fights at 170 again after missing by 8 pounds?
I personally do not think so. Like he struggled to make weight his last fight. I know he quote unquote made weight, but we all saw the towel like standing there supporting him. So even though the last time he made 70, he stepped on the scale and number read 170. We all saw the towel and seen where his weight actually was. So I personally don't see him fighting at 170, and it's not even like it's a hit on the guy. Like for how talented he is, and wanting to see him do the best, and not necessarily like have a guy like put himself through the ringer or make weight, so to speak. I just would rather see him fight at 85 if he can get like prolong his career and get a lot more done at 85 rather than killing himself trying to make 170. I mean, it's not practical because then, like in my mind, it's like a built-in excuse. Like, let's say he does make 170 again, fights there. It's like, oh well, the reason I finally lost because I had a terrible weight cut. Like, no, like you knew how much you weighed when you took the fight, and you thought you could make it effectively, and you took the fight. There's no excuses needed there. Like, compete where you think you'll be best at, and leave all the excuses at the door, so to speak. But like at the end of the day, I just don't see the advantage of someone cutting that much weight, especially when you struggle to make it often, and you miss by 8 pounds. I'm just like, at this point, it's like, all right, what's the point? Like, why are you even pushing it at this point?
Well said, Neil. I don't want to make you late for practice. I'll give you the last word if you have anything to mention before we get out of here.
Not much. I mean, same as always. You guys can always follow me at Neil Magny _170 on all social media platforms. And then, as always, check out mission111.org on Instagram and Facebook, and check out the work they're doing in both Philippines and Haiti for their mission trips.